This is the PR Podcast, a show about how public relations helps you tell your story to the world. We talk with great PR practitioners who have the skills, creativity, and just plain savvy to get their clients noticed. Now here's your host, Jody Fisher.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the PR Podcast. I'm Jody Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Well, make sure you send us your PR Podcast plug. I must sound like a broken record because sometimes I feel like it. But we created the PR Podcast plug to give you guys, you PR people and you marketers, the opportunity to plug yourself. I don't know about you, but I am great at promoting my clients and horrible at promoting myself. And that's a bad thing for a business owner. But nevertheless, this is Key Turn. Is it Key Turn? What is the phrase? An easy way for you to give yourself some love and to let us give you some love. Send us a PR podcast plug about something cool that you've done. Now, like we say, it's not your 9 to 5. It's your blog. It's an award you've won. It's an opinion piece you wrote and got published. It's your cool TikTok channel. It's your YouTube channel, whatever you got, right? Let us plug you on an upcoming episode by sending us your PR podcast plug. Email me at jody@jodyfisherpr.com or reach out on any of the socials, either my socials at Jody Fisher or at the PR podcast on any of the socials as well. Send us a PR podcast plug, get yourself some love, and also pitch yourself as a guest. You know, we do 52 shows a year. We need 52 guests every year. You should be one of them. If you've got a perspective on how news gets made or how marketing gets done or how messages get conveyed, send us a guest pitch as well. And we will consider you to be a guest on an upcoming episode. Now, speaking of guests, we got someone here who I have wanted to have on a guest for a long time, so let's get to it. Lindsey Burda is the owner of BurdaMarketing, where she partners with passionate service-based business owners to help them build a strong digital presence to bring in more leads online. Now, having worked with nearly 100 small businesses around the world, her goal is to provide guidance in growing voice, brand, and strategy that helps business owners focus on doing more of what they love. Lindsey, welcome to the PR Podcast.
Hey, thanks, Jody. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for being on the show. You and I worked together just a little bit on a client that I had and a client that you had is sort of intersected, and that's how we got to know each other. But like I said before we started taping too, I really dig the stuff that you do online. Your brand, your look, your website, your social, everything integrates seamlessly. And when I come across your content online, I know exactly who I'm looking at, and I know exactly what to expect. Tell me about the importance of well, you're welcome, but it's earned. It's totally earned. But tell me about the importance of a digital presence and how you created that for yourself.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, importance of a digital presence, let's just say, right? Everyone's online, right? Everybody is online. We're constantly on social media. We're constantly Googling, and it really is the best place to, if you are a business, to show up and get more reach and reach a broader audience. Whether you are a local business who is servicing a local audience, it's still important to be online. And so for me, I came from I've been in marketing for over a decade. And so I kind of, when I was starting my own business a few years ago, just kind of knew what I had to do, had all the boxes I need to tick. And so set up my website, got on social media, started showing up authentically and just really repeating my message again and again and again, to get that out there and draw people in.
People can probably get really caught up when they're creating a brand in either a cool tagline or just the right font or just the right colors or something like that. Where did you start, and where do you start with your clients in terms of analyzing a brand and then creating and building that brand, sort of giving it a foundation?
Yeah. So everything that you mentioned in my mind is secondary, right? So the first part is the stuff that you don't see. The first part is really diving into brand development. And that doesn't mean your logo and your visuals. That means your messaging. What is your core message? Why does your business exist? Who is it there to serve? What do you do? What's the benefit of what you do? What are your values as a business? All of those really foundational things that make you who you are, whether you're a personal brand or, you're a larger company with a team. I mean, it still applies to both. And then from there, then you can start building on, okay, what font kind of gives us this feel, what font matches our brand personality, what colors match our brand personality, and all of that. So yeah, it really starts with just a discussion of who you are, who you serve, and what makes you unique.
I've got to imagine, and a lot of that sounds similar to what I do on the PR side in terms of
Yeah.
developing narratives, pitching out stories to media, things like that. It's very, very similar. But it can be challenging, I think, to
Hmm.
get that process started and to get people to kind of look in the mirror a little bit.
Hmm.
It's one thing to say, "Oh, I got a great story," and that's fine. But sort of getting people to drill down on, for lack of a better word, maybe their mission, or
Hmm.
the way I describe it, who you are, what you do, and why you get out of bed in the morning. How do you
Right.
help them look inward and start that exercise off? Is it a form that you have? Is it a conversation that you have? How do you engage?
Yeah, so it's definitely a very in-depth, long conversation. But also I like to make it clear to them, like when we're having this conversation, that we don't have to have all the answers right now. We don't have to have all the answers right now. You might not even know yet what that looks like or who you really are, especially if you're a business starting out, you might not have all the answers just yet. You might need to kind of dip your toes in the water and start working with various clients if that's what you do. Working with clients. Like I said, I do more the service based, client based versus product. So that's kind of where my my knowledge there comes in. But yeah, it's you don't have to have the foundation set solid. Like it's going to evolve as you evolve as a business. I mean, even myself, like I didn't start out in just servicing a very specific type of client. I was like, oh, I'll try, working with product based businesses and I'll try doing this. And then I found out, nope, that's not my expertise. That's not my kind of where my heart is. It's more in the service space and helping others help others. So even for myself, someone who does this for a living, right? It takes a while to kind of really hone in on that. And it can evolve over time. So
And so that is a special skill too, in terms of, yeah, I guess it's easy to identify a widget, right?
mhm.
Here's the widget, it's the best widget, it does the best thing, and blah blah. It's harder to wrap that around an individual or personality.
Yeah, yeah.
What would you say some of the differences are, maybe product based versus person based marketing?
Yeah. So for product based and person based, service based, right? Always like to say that you, the person, almost become the product. So we are more selling almost your personality because especially if you work with one-on-one clients, they are going to be working with you, especially if it's, I don't know, let's say it's a coach or an advisor or something like that. You're going to be working one-on-one with that person. And let's be honest, we want to work with people we like. The person could have the best marketing, they could have the best service, but if you talk to them on the phone and you're like, I just do not vibe with this person, you're going to choose someone else that you vibe with. And so you, the person, almost become the product. So there is, so when it comes to marketing, we're really trying to show who you are as an individual, as well as the benefit you bring as as your service and as your business. Whereas a product, we're telling the story more about the product. How can the product benefit you? We don't need to see the person behind it. Sure, we can if it matters to the brand, but we don't have to. We can just see the product. What difference is that going to make in the person's life? Even if it's something as simple as this candle's going to make your house smell amazing, right? It's not a need or a necessity, but there is a benefit to that. So
That's
yeah,
the
product
conversation. But
versus person. Yep.
that's a great point, but that's the conversation that I have too on the PR side.
Yeah.
When we're trying to promote a thing, and perhaps one of my college or university clients is probably a good example of this. You're selling the education, you're selling the educational experience, the benefit that the student will get when they graduate from the college with the degree that they have. But there's got
Yes.
to be a person to articulate that stuff.
Yeah.
The college campus can't talk for itself. The diploma doesn't have a mouth and can't speak.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
find sometimes when you're dealing with clients, when you work, sometimes we're dealing with them, but we're working with clients.
Right.
Do you find you have to warm people up to that concept? Because some people like want to be low key about themselves in their
Mhm.
marketing. They don't want to be out front.
Yes. Yeah. So some people, yeah, it depends on the person. Some people are ready to dive in and some people are more skittish about it. And I think a lot of times the mindset of that comes in where they're like, well, I don't, like you said, I don't want to be front and center, or I don't want to feel like I'm talking about me and it's all about me and that sort of thing. But the mindset shift there is that it's it feels like it's about you, but it's not about you, right? So if you're showing up and, okay, here's a perfect example I use is a lot of people will share like motivational quotes from, I don't know, random people, Einstein or whoever, right? They'll share these motivational quotes. And I'm like, what about quotes that come from you? What about your voice, right? We want to hear your voice. And I've had people say like, well, I don't want to seem like I'm always just boasting about myself or, putting myself up on that pedestal. And I'm like, but that's exactly what your audience wants. That's exactly what people want. Because if I'm looking to hire somebody, I want to know what you are saying and what you believe and your personality. I'm not going to work with Einstein, right? So let's not share his
That is a
quotes.
great point. That
Yeah.
is a great point. I've always been, guilty as charged in terms of sharing quotes on social media that
Oh,
I
that's
find
okay. You can,
inspiring.
it's
Right.
not a 100% no, but yeah.
Well, but here's the thing that I always think of, and maybe this is my journalism background, is that whenever
Yeah.
I see the quote and then, so Abraham Lincoln said it or Einstein said it, I'm like, did they really say it though?
Right.
Like, I want to be really careful. Because
Right.
then if
Can't
you
really.
quote and then someone pops up and they're like, he didn't say that. And you're like, oh no, foot and mouth.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Especially with the internet now. I actually saw people do that where they'll take a quote and it's obviously like they'll have link in there and they'll do a quote about something that's like happening today to like prove the point that like, do we really know if they said it or not?
Right, right. By the way, do you have a favorite inspirational quote? I have one that I love, but I want to hear yours.
Mm. Yeah. So I have one. I don't even, sorry, that keeps dinging. Um, I don't even think that it's not really business related. It's just life in general. But one quote that always stuck with me was, never regret growing older. It is a privilege denied to many.
Wow, that's good. And that's deep too.
Yeah.
Is there a
Yeah.
source? You have a source on that one or
It's
no?
actually unknown. It's actually
I love
unknown.
unknown.
Yes. Yeah. It's unknown. And I think I always like that one because especially as a woman and growing up, you would always hear women, especially, complain about their birthday or I'm not going to tell you my age or that sort of thing. And I'm like, you should be, you know, wearing that like a badge of honor. Yeah.
I agree. I agree fully. I have no
Mhm.
problems being 52 years old.
Yeah. Wear it like a
Although I
badge
don't
of
know
honor.
how my kids keep aging because I'm not aging. Oh.
Right.
Let's get back to brand and
Yeah.
talk about as you move through this process, right? As you're building a
Mhm.
brand, you're identifying what I'll call mission, sort of like that inspiration, the why they exist. How do you then develop a voice around that?
Yeah.
Do you boil it down to talking points, or how do you start to get that down on paper?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that a lot of that does happen in that brand discussion, right? We'll talk about things like, what personality or what voice. Yeah, what voice do you want people to associate with your brand? Is it fun and energetic or is it more serious and stoic? Or and I think that can also relate to who you, especially a personal brand, relate to who you are as a person, because we want to make sure that you're not constantly trying to just fake it or put on a persona that doesn't match with who you are.
You're not
So
saying brands try to be something they're not, are
uh,
you?
sometimes, but yeah, so and it's just easier to be authentic in that way. So yeah, I mean that can be a tough one, especially for a personal brand, because I mean, if anyone's ever asked you the question to tell us about yourself, that's very hard to do. It is very hard to do. So I think that's something that you can try to pinpoint in the beginning, but then I think like anything, it kind of develops over time. You can have a general idea. But for example, I always use the example of social media versus like a website, for example, because I see this a lot. So on social media, they might show up with this brand voice that's very fun and energetic, and they're, doing all the trends or whatever on social media. And then you go to their website and it's very serious and business and suit and tie. And it's like, wait, something's not aligning here. The brand voice sounds completely different in both of these situations.
Yeah, that's a great point to point out. And that takes me back to my impression of your brand too. When,
Okay.
even just visually, but beyond the visual, the voice that you've developed. If you look at your website versus, and I'm sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, probably
That's
embarrassing you, but
okay.
I'm going to say it anyway, because that's why I wanted to have you on. You go to your website, then you go to your social, then you go to your newsletter. Anything you do has that same look, feel, and voice. And I think it's a
Thanks.
really good thing for people to take a look at and use as an example of this is how you're supposed to do it, because it needs to be consistent across. People need to understand when they're looking at your website, and then they look at your social, that it's the same thing, and they need to identify that visually, and they
Yeah.
need to identify that with the voice that pops in their head.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't want someone to go on your website, I don't know, click a link to social media and then be like, wait, am I on the right profile? Is this right? You don't want any hesitation, any roadblocks, nothing. And a good example too is if you met someone, say you met someone at a party and you're talking with them, and I don't know, they have a certain personality, they're fun, whatever. You then meet them somewhere else and they're a completely different person. You would take a step back. You would be very hesitant. You would be like, wait a minute. I thought I knew this person. I don't. And that can happen with your brand as well.
Great point. You also used the word a moment or two ago, authenticity,
Yes.
which is something that I talk about with my clients on the PR side. You need to tell authentic stories. How does that
Oh, yes.
translate on the brand side?
Oh, yeah. 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 Same way. Like, so for example, again, going back to, personal brands, service-based businesses, especially, if you're telling a story or showing up in one way online, for example, but then someone calls and they talk to you and it's like you're a completely different person, there's again going to be that kind of hesitation, that step back. But if you are just always authentic in who you are and what you believe and the values you align with, and you're always showing up that way online, then there's no um there's no thought that needs to be had behind it. You can just show
No
up
hesitation.
authentically,
Yeah.
right? There's no hesitation. You can just be yourself. And when your online marketing is attracting, hopefully, your ideal client, and then they get on the phone with you, it all feels aligned. It all feels authentic from A to Z. It just feels like, okay, I know this person. I like this person. I want to work with this person. It's been authentic the whole way through.
And that's the holy grail, right? Is the
Yeah.
branding that lends to I'm going to use the word conversion, right?
Hmm.
To getting that person to convert and engage as a customer,
Yeah.
whatever that form that takes, whether it's buying a product, engaging with a service, whatever they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
All brands are not built the same, though. I mean, you've got
Right.
big brands and you got small brands. Like you said, you got product brands and personal brands.
Yes.
Are there types of strategies, or maybe even like platforms like website versus social versus newsletter versus blog? Are there types of things that work better for types of brands, or is it in more like in the how you use it than the what you use?
Yeah, I think it's a little of both, but I think it's definitely more in the how you use it. Because every brand's going to be different in their approach, right? We can have a general framework of how we approach things, like, right, I'm not going to sit here and say, no, there's not one business that I'm going to say doesn't need a website, right? I'm going to be like, everyone needs a website, everyone needs a social presence, everyone, like, so there's certain things like that, there's certain framework we want to put together. But how you approach that and how you execute that would look different for each brand. So, I mean, something as simple as like Well, let's talk big brands for a moment. So if you are a big name brand and you're already have some recognition in the public, for example, your online, I mean, all this still matters, right? Your online presence still matters. The way you show up matters, but it almost isn't as, okay, I'll say their reputation can sometimes already precede their online presence. So for example, like McDonald's or a celebrity could post something and everyone goes crazy and they're like 100 comments and they're engaging. And it could be just something like, I don't know, a picture of, what did I see the other day? I forget who it was, but someone just posted a picture, it was a celebrity, of a heart like spray painted on the sidewalk and hundreds of comments and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I know if I did that, it wouldn't be crickets, right? That's not going to get me any reach. That's not going to help my brand or my business, right? So there is that with big brands, they do have, they have just a lot more going for them. They have a bigger team like Coca-Cola. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, that's huge, right? So, you take someone like a smaller brand, it's almost like their online presence precedes them. So your first impression is going to be anything that you see online from them. So even the smallest little roadblock could stop you from doing business with them. But if a larger business already has a reputation and you hit a little roadblock, you're like, that's okay. I'll just go to the store and get it. Or I'll just, it's not going to stop you from working with them anymore.
Right.
Whereas like a smaller brand, it would. So, but yeah, just as far as like approach and like choosing social media platforms, I don't think any one specific platform is like a no-no for any one industry. I think every industry has a place on every platform. It's just knowing like where is your ideal client showing up? So if you are like B2B, for example, LinkedIn might be great. If you're B2C and targeting millennials and Gen Z, perhaps TikTok or Instagram might be, the better option. So there's definitely knowing where your audience is. All the tools can be used by anybody, right? It's just finding where you fit or where your audience is really and what they're searching and their habits.
Brilliant. And it's the same approach that we take in PR. When I frequently tell clients, let's fish where your fish are.
Yes.
And I was just having this conversation with a potential new business client this morning, talking about smaller outlets, that people love to be in the New York Times. They love to be in the Wall Street Journal. They love to be in, name your national outlet.
Yeah.
But if you're a local business,
doesn't make sense.
Your geography is, Long Island, which is where I'm based and where they're based. I'm like, well, then you should be in those Long Island publications primarily because that's where your audience is.
Exactly.
Those are the people who are going to convert and do business with you. So don't be led astray by the bright lights of some kind of big national hit. Not that we won't go for it, but we're not going to put all of our energy there. We're going to be fishing where the fish.
Exactly. That's why you want to do like regional ads versus national ads, things like that. Especially if you're a, restaurant in this particular area, mom and pop shop, in the East Coast, don't advertise in California because it's not going to help you.
There you go. Well, this has been a great conversation, Lindsey. I'm so glad that we got to chat about this. And you are definitely someone that people should look to when they're thinking about creating a brand, when they're looking to elevate their brand. But like I said, and I'm sorry, I'm probably embarrassing you, but I really think that you do it right.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so glad that we had you on the show here. We're going to segue now. Oh, of course. We're going to segue now. Oh, we're not letting you go yet. Hold on. Into the rapid fire question portion of our podcast. This is where we steal a page from inside the actor's studio and we ask our guests a series of rapid fire questions. They're meant to elicit a simple answer and maybe a laugh or two. So with your indulgence, Lindsey, let's begin rapid fire question number 1. What is your favorite news source?
Okay. I might be a little embarrassed by this answer. But I tend to these days let the news find me, and it typically finds me on, let's say, TikTok or something like that. And then I fact check.
Very good. There's nothing wrong with using the social media channels as news aggregators.
As long as you fact check.
Absolutely. 100%.
Definitely.
100%.
Fact check everything.
Rapid fire question number 2. What's your favorite social media platform?
I'm going to tell you, this was hard. This is really, really hard because it depends on if I'm in work or play mode. So I'm going to say work mode. It's going to be more Instagram, maybe LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
and if you're in play mode, you are on
TikTok.
Yeah, we all are. We all are.
Yeah, it's so easy.
It is the easiest way to blow an hour.
It's so
I swear. The rabbit hole goes deep and fast,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Rapid fire question number 3, coffee or alcohol?
Neither. I'm a tea girl, tea drinker.
Very good. Very
Yep.
good. We love the tea too. We love the tea. Rapid fire question number 4. What's your favorite on the run food?
Pizza. I'm not sure if that counts. Does that count?
Of course it does.
Okay.
It sure
pizza
counts
for
on
sure.
Long Island, let me tell you.
Yeah. Always pizza. If I'm traveling, it's pizza.
Where do we have the best pizza in Pennsylvania?
Oh, man, I don't know. Any of the small mom and pop shops are good.
Yeah.
I haven't had a bad one.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
Rapid fire question number 5, Lindsay. What do you want to be after you finish this career?
So, this might be really random and not even related to my career now, but I love gardening. It's so relaxing. And I could see myself running like an orchard.
That's a great one.
That could be fun and very relaxing.
Very nice. Love that. Well, Lindsay, this has been a great conversation. Please let people know how they can find you and your fantastic brand online.
Yeah, so it's my business is BurdaMarketing. That's BURDA marketing. And so BurdaMarketing.com. You can find me on pretty much all the socials at the same name, BurdaMarketing. And yeah, I have a podcast as well. Passion to Purpose.
Love it. I love that podcast. Part of my regular listening.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks again, Lindsay. And thank you everyone for listening. Please remember to subscribe to the show. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at the PR Podcast, and send us a question or a comment. Our intro is by Christopher Appold. You can find him and his fantastic photography on Instagram at Christopher_APPOLDT. Check him out there and hire him for all your photography needs. You can find me online at Jody Fisher on all the socials and on the web at jodyfisherpr.com. We'll see you next time on the PR Podcast.